So, hello everyone. Hope you all had a wonderful Shabbos. Welcome this week's Sipurey Tzadikim, Sichos Haran. And as we always do, we start with the Baal Shem Tov. It is a Kabbalah from Tzadikim that is very, very good to speak of the Holy Baal Shem Tov every Motzei Shabbos Kodesh, and to speak of his praises and what he did and things that happened to him. And this is a Zgula to Atzlacha throughout the entire week, both in body and in spirit, which is, that's what we're doing. Once a Jew said to one of the Chassidish rabbis that he's very scared of thunders. And so this rabbi told him that it's a Zgula to remember the Baal Shem HaKadosh in the name of his mother, Sarah, and his holy Talmud Pinchas of Koretz, whose name was Sarah Rachel Shendel. And if you remember that, this will take the fear of. In the very same way that it's a Zgula to mention the name of Eliyahu Hanavi Motzei Shabbos Kodesh, it's a Zgula to mention the name of Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov ben Sarah, because they both were students of the same Rebbe, which is Achia Shilem. Baal Shem Tov said that anybody who was zeicher to be, to stay Shabbos by him and eat by his tish, he says he gave him the remedy to save himself from all the taivas. It's also working on the person to behave in his house, with holiness and purity. If a person was sick, it's a sgula, it's a big sgula that the illness will never return. And with this is the great koyach of the tzaddik, that his holy table can give to a person shmira for the future. It's one of the things that we see that Rabbeinu HaKadosh speaks both in Sefer Amidas and in Sichos. The physical actions of the tzaddikim are always the hold on just one second, excuse me. Apologize. Couldn't be avoided. Anyhow, that the ma'aseh of what the tzaddikim did, whenever they wanted to be poil something in the spiritual realm, they will do a similar action in the physical realm. You can see this most often by the Nevi'im. Kodesh Baruch Hu would tell the Navi, this action or that action, lie down on your right side for 6 months, and then, and you have 6 months, and this is these are physical things that when you take a look at it and you're like, what has this got to do with anything? Why would these supposedly strange physical actions would enter would be necessary? Obviously, if it's written in Nevi'im that it's necessary. The answer is that this world is one with all the upper worlds, and things need to be done and triggered both in the physical world and on the spiritual world. You can see that when Moshe Rabbeinu, Kadosh Baruch Hu told him, that he has to, that Aaron has to, wave his stick and get the water into blood, that the makkah of boils, they have to take the ashes from the oven and throw them up to the Shemaim, and it becomes skin. These are physical actions. That act as triggers in the spiritual words. In this poil, the Yeshua. For that particular Nakuda, it's interesting to mention that it says in the Chumash that as Moshe Rabbeinu is getting ready to speak, to Paro, and the Makkos are about to start. He says, this is Moshe and Aaron that Hashem has commanded to Am Yisrael and to Pari. So supposedly this particular pasuk is really difficult to comprehend. What did the Kadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu to speak to the Jewish people about? I mean, to tell Paro, we understand. He's supposed to tell Paro, to get the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim. But what is he telling the Jewish people at that time? What is he commanding the Jewish people at that particular time? Just at the onset of the plagues of Mitzrayim. So the Shalmi very interestingly says that Moshe Rabbeinu was teaching Am Yisrael the halachas of Eved Ivri, of a Jewish slave. How is a Jewish slave supposed to be, and when a Jewish slave becomes a Jewish slave, and what happens, what kind of work he can do, what kind of work he cannot do, whatever. And this is the onset of what? Of their redemption from being slaves. So, obviously, from the standpoint of Musar, this is a breakaway from the rest of humanity, in the sense that when you're speaking to the Goyishe Welt, and someone is a slave, so the idea is for them to get free and become free and do what? Well, obviously, is to make other people slaves for them. But here is the first insert of Jewish ethics, you may say, that Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the Jewish people, you are now slaves, okay? So you know what it feels like to be a slave. Now, you're going to go out of here. And when you go out of here, don't think that you own the world, that now you're on top of the world and you can do whatever it is that you want. And forget whatever happened. No, the point is that you're supposed to take what happens to you and to learn from it on how a slave owner needs to behave with his slaves. Now, in this world, it is very common that people take, kind of catchphrases, and they make them into causes. Okay, I mean, none more blatant than the union of slavery. Slavery is something which is regarded as, the root of evil. And when it is given to a Gentile, in a Chinamit, it's exactly what it is. It means that one is taking another person and does with that person whatever they wish to. There are countless, endless examples throughout history of how slaves were mistreated. Not the least, in the Midrashim of Eicha, when the Jewish people were taken as slaves and so forth and so forth and so on. But the point is that if a person is taking a different kind of outlook on slavery, where slavery is sanctioned, but under a very, very specific and strict set of rules. Slavery actually can be understood as a lifetime employment, secure lifetime employment, where you never have to worry about taking any risks. You don't have to worry about food. You never have to worry about medical expenses. When you think of it that way, suddenly you see that there definitely are people in the world who, if it's not for that particular, first of all, there's a lack of a way of actually administering, humane, quote unquote, lifetime employment, for the lack of a better word for it. Besides that, just think how many people, if not for that, for that stigma, would say, yeah, I'm in. Sure. No problem. Get me to work, by someone, a wealthy person, a kind person, law-abiding person, and I got my problem solved. So that is one of the stigmas. But the point is that slavery has its place, or at least historically had its place. And there is in Shulchan Aruch, there is the halachas that have to do with slavery. Our person is supposed to behave with slaves. And the advice of Shulchan Aruch and Rambam give slave owners, how to be, even-handed, and how to behave with slaves, things to do, things not to do, to maintain their welfare and their happiness. Being that slaves are innately, they live under, a lack of choice of what to do. The Mishnah says, the Gemara says, Avda nichala b'ifkera. Slaves are very comfortable with chaos, with lawlessness, because they care. There's nothing to pay. I mean, there's no consequences. If they gain, they're not. If they win, they're not going to gain. If they lose, they're not going to be without. But you see that even the Geula has to do with a physical thing that comes before, the great spiritual events that follow it. The eating of the tzadikim, the looking of the tzadikim, the touch of the tzaddik, sitting by his table, eating his bread, being given. There's a famous story by Rabbeinu Zal that he had a shoichet. I mean, one of the Hasidim, a rest of Hasidim, his name was Rabbi Abba, who was a shoichet, and he was a great Kabbalist. And he asked Rabbeinu if he said that most of his parnasa was mamash before Shoshana, and he lived a few hundred miles away from Breslov. And So, I mean, you understand a few hundred miles those days was a few weeks of travel. Says being that Moses' parnasa is, before the Yom Tovim. So yes, Rabbeinu, if it's okay, if he were to arrive in Uman, on Erev Rosh Hashanah, using Kabbalistic names, teletransportation, and get Rosh Hashanah, Rabbeinu said, no, to me, you come with carriages and horses. So one year, Rabbi Abba and his son bought a chalice, Kiddush cup for Rabbeinu. It was very expensive, and they went along the road. They took enough time, ahead of time, and they traveled, and things became more and more complex and complicated and difficult. There were all kinds of storms, and horses died, whatever it is. At the end, they had to sell the Kiddush cup to be able to hire a wagon that will get them to Breslov. And they got to Breslov Mamish before Rosh Hashanah came in. So after davening, with the Rebbe's Tish, obviously they didn't get a chance, to speak to Rabbeinu before. So by the Rabbeinu's Tish, Rabbeinu turned to Rabbi Abba and his son, and he told Rabbi Abba, I'm going to gouge out the eyes of the Sitra Achra, of the Samach Mem, for that Kiddush cup that he took from you. So he said, what should I do? What reward should I give you for your serious nefesh of coming to me on this Rosh Hashanah? So he told Rabbi Abba, you don't need anything from me anymore in this world. And his son, so Rabbeinu took a spoonful of his soup. He says, go ahead, take. So he took it, he drank it. So Rabbi Abba actually passed away that year, and his son became extremely wealthy. Rabbeinu says this gula, for a woman that has menstrual problems to drink a wine that the tzaddik amiti has looked at it. There's staklos. We know that there's ein hara is a real thing. So ein toiva is also the staklos of a tzaddik, the physicality of the tzaddik, the schus of being at the tish of Baal Shem HaKadosh. Schusot again aleinu v'kol Yisrael amen. And now we are continuing another Maisa from the Rabbeinu Arshash. Once Rabbeinu Arshash was sitting, Abshom Shalabi was sitting in his house and was, doing Avodas Hashem, Darka B'Kodesh. And there was a woman that would serve, and every day she would give him a cup of coffee every day. So one day she came bringing in 2 cups of coffee. So Abshom Shalabi asked her, why are you giving me 2 cups? So she said, how can I not? I see this extremely venerable person sitting together with Rabbeinu, so I brought him. So the Rashash was staggered. And she said, and he told her, the person that sits with me is Eliyahu Novi. Zochol Atov. But I'm putting the onus on you. You have absolutely no permission to reveal this to anybody in the world. So the woman said, if my master will guarantee me that I will be Zoche to Gan Eden, in your neighborhood, I will swear that I will never let any person in the world know about this. And the Rashash agreed. And the thing remained secret, and nobody knew about it. when the time of this woman to pass away came, and they saw there was a Pella. After the Tahara, the people, the people of Kadisha wanted to take her out of the house. They couldn't move her, no matter what they did. So Rabbeinu Rashash, and he bent and he whispered some words in her ear. And he said to the people next to her, go ahead, now you can take her. And very easily they moved it like a baby. And they made her a great covet. But it was after she passed away, this Indian of the revelation of Aliyah Novi was known, through her. We're talking about real people. Okay? We're talking about real people. We're not talking about magicians. We're not talking about characters from some legends and stuff. We're talking about people, simple people. So, in the year 5,284, the Keilas Ashkenazim in Yerushalayim, they all got together. Only like 15 families. Talking about the 15th, 16th century. They all have big day chag and a small shul, because there was the bris of the son of Rabbi Shlomo Luria Ashkenazi. Is making a bris to his child. Obviously, amongst the people that are there's Rabbi Klonimus Azokin. He is the Rav of the Kehillah. He is the Rav Muvok of the Baal Bris, and he's standing there, an old, venerable person, beaming with wisdom, discovered. And all Chachmei Yerushalayim and all the greatest people in Yerushalayim were there. They were using their time until the beginning, the tekas, they're learning Torah. And in the corner, there's the father of the child, amazing chassid standing there, Reb Metalus, in making his beidus, davening, tremendous kavanah. Everything is ready. The Kisa Shalayahu is standing there, the Moel is standing there, and he looks at the Baal Simcha and is waiting until, things will begin. But Rabbi Shlomo looks like he's not even there. He's like in different worlds. Every now and then he would look back and go back, closing his eyes and davening. People starting to lose their patience. Why, doesn't the Moel do what he needs to do? So what do you mean? See, the father is not ready. He's davening. The Moel becomes impatient, and he's gesturing to Reb Shlomo, but he doesn't even notice it. So one of the people there, comes close to him and whispers something in his ear. Obviously, he's interested in what's the reason for the delay. Says what did the Baal Simcha said? He says one of his relatives that lives far away still didn't come. It's very strange, So slowly, some of the guests already started going away. They got busy days. They got full days. They can't wait forever. The shul was jam-packed before, and very, very few people were still waiting there for the bris milah. Suddenly, they hear an incredible crying, awful crying. They look, and it's the Baal Bris. Rabbi Shlomo himself is standing there, and he's crying, and his face is wet with tears, and all his body is shaking. His heart is broken. So they wanted to say, and suddenly he looks, and his face, lightens up, and he says to them, well, go ahead, do his shlichus. People looking around, they don't see anything. But then they brought in the baby, Kvata, the Moel makes a bracha b'kol ram, and the father makes a bracha very quickly. The Moel does the mitzvah. It says Lokeinu v'Lokei Avoteinu Kayem Esayel Dazel La'Ovev Limoy Yikashmo B'Yisrael, and he stops and puts his ear, to the father of the baby. He gets up and says, Yitzchok ben Rabbi Shloimeh, Yismach Avi, Yitzelav, so and so on. It says the Nusach, everybody says Mazel Tov. And when they sat down to the Suda, one of them the people said, do you know why Rabbi Shloimeh called his son Yitzchok? He says, no, I don't think that his father's name is Yitzchok. B'vadai, his father's about Shem will be, stand for him. And the way the Moel checked the baby, and he said, I've never seen anything like this in my life. I mean, I've Gemal Baruch Hashem, many children in my life, and the place of the Milah in children, it takes days until it heals. And I see this Yitzchak, this Gemalad baby, he's already completely healed. I don't know, what is this? What is that? Angels around too. And the Moel himself did not know, that he actually had upon a great secret. That was the answer to all the quandaries of the people around. Sometime before his child was born, Rabbi Shloimeh had a revelation from the Eliyahu Novi. He told him, you should know, Rabbi Shloimeh, that I was sent to let you know that your holy wife is going to give birth to a son. And when he will be born, you should call him Yitzchak. And he will reveal in Yitzhak Shem all the Sisra Torah, all the inside of the Torah, and that will bring the Yeshua to Klal Yisrael. But you should be very careful. Until you will see me in the day of the bris, until the point you see me, don't perform the bris. Wait for me to come. So Shlomo, was standing there, Herdes Kodesh, the birth of his holy child, very, very careful not to sin chas v'chalila. There were a lot of mitzvahs, limited Torah, that, in such moments in time, there's always fraught with danger. And when he was waiting, and I don't know if he wasn't there, the people started going away. He started worrying, maybe that's not the child that I was told about. Mistama, I was just tricked. I fell in the clutches of the Yetzer Hara, and I made some kind of an Aveira Chas v'Chalila. And this is what happened. I don't have the schus to be the father of such a great tzaddik. And he says, I'm not really to see Eliyahu Navi here. And he started crying, and then he lifted his eyes and he saw Eliyahu Navi. He says, okay, now you can go and make the bris. I was waiting and I was staying away. That was a test. Are you going to listen to what you were told? Are you going to wait for me or not? Now go ahead, take the undercovers. I will sit with you and I will hold the baby on my lap. Nobody's going to see me. So Eliyahu Malach HaBris, the Maisa was the sandik of Ariz without anybody knowing. And that baby was Rabbeinu Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria Ashkenazi. Everybody called him Ari HaKadosh. His Ari is not called Ashkenazi, Rabbi Yitzchak, Eloki Rabbi Yitzchak. His family was. This is the story of the bris of Rabbeinu Arizal. Let's take, where's my I'm not sure. Okay. Okay. And now, let's get to the Sichos Haran of today. Here we go. 162. And this is basically a story of what happened Rabbeinu when he was in Zlatipoli. It's one of the towns, villages in Ukraine. Rabbeinu was fasting for Shabbos to Shabbos, and on Friday they had to carry him in a carriage from the mikvah because he couldn't walk. Rabbeinu said the reason why he was so weak is because people found out that he was fasting. That's why he became so weak. So even though Rabbeinu had a special house in the village where he sat alone, still, most of the times he would go around in the field, in one of the forests, and he was making zbeirus over there. He says, once I went with him in Kilas Medvedevke, Rabbeinu lived there in the beginning, and I went with him here and there by the fields and the mountains. Rabbeinu HaKadosh, he moved like this with his hand on the fields and the mountains. He says, you see all these fields and these mountains that you see around the town? All these fields that are close to town, I walked and strolled all of them many times. I was going there, making zbeirus in all these places. And he told me that over there on the top of a mountain, there's a very high place. And the top of the place there is like a valley. Probably it's some kind of a volcano, an active volcano of some sort. And he would go there, to the top, and goes into this valley inside, into the crater inside. He says he loved making this burials. Many times he go to other places. And he was Kilas Kodesh Dvidovke, who was already a famous tzaddik. When he lived there, he used to go to make his burials outside in the field a lot. And the same thing when he was in Mezhibozh, after he was in Zlatipoli, and obviously in Bleshlev, every single day, Rabbeinu would make a lot of his burials. Sometimes he would make his burials all day long. Which brings us to this Nakuda, his burials. There probably is no greater battle in a Jew's life than getting to make his burials, setting aside time to talk to Kodesh Baruch Hu. It seems to be such a obvious, such an obvious thing. Just set time aside, sit down, go around, speak to Kodesh Baruch Hu. It's a time where a person's emunah is being tested live. When the red light goes above the camera, you're live. 50 million people around the world are seeing you. When you're sitting there for Kodesh Baruch Hu, you're speaking. This is when the pedal hits the metal. This is it. This is it. That is the test. Now, anybody needs to make his bridus. It's very easy for a person to feel, look, I can make his bridus. I'm trying, I'm sitting there, I'm bored, I'm getting lost. My thought process takes me, I don't want to tell you where it takes me. But you have to understand that even if you make 2 minutes out of this time that you're sitting there, you're making a minute of his beiradus, a few seconds of his beiradus. It means that you are doing his beiradus. We all have this ribui or, we all have this thing that we want to say, like a whole hour of sitting there, at least an hour of sitting there, talking to Kadosh Baruch Hu. It'll be difficult in the beginning, and then it becomes open, and then the point is that anything that you are able to do in his beiradus is called his beiradus. You have to understand that you cannot let anything confuse you and scare you. But I can't do this. I'm doing foolish things. I'm not able to stick with it. I'm not able to keep up with it. If you are making this videos and you manage to say a sentence or two, it's great. If you manage to do it a couple of times a day, it is great. Whatever it is that you are able to do, it's called that you are making this videos. Come on. Obviously, you need to get to the point that Hashem making an hour of his videos at least, because that opens everything. That opens the gates to everything. And time is rushing by. It's not like it's not like we got all day, It's like we really have to do it. But the point is that you have to understand that as little as you do is important. Even if you say a word, it's already considered you're making his mind do this. Where are you compared to Rabbeinu? Where's anybody compared to Rabbeinu? The main meaning is you should know whatever you do is done. Whatever you do is called you made his Baidadus. Whatever tshuva that you did is called you made tshuva. And so, it's a very delicate, mishkal. On one hand, you have to make sure that you're not getting away with murder. On the other hand, you should understand that whatever it is that you manage to do is good. Monday, Mr. Shem, we have Rosh Chodesh. This Rosh Chodesh is auspicious at Hashem for Sichos, for zivugim, for children, for health, for everything. Shvat, that's the name of the game, Bezat Hashem. I want to wish each and every one of you a fantastic week, a fantastic Chodesh, Bezat Hashem, Chodesh of renewal, of health, and everything good, Bezat Hashem. And hopefully, Bezat Hashem, we'll see you on Monday, and we will learn and continue the story of Sipurey.